Hey folks, we've got some leaked cards from Galakrond's Awakening to talk about.
Hey, buddy, watch this.
Yeah, if you didn't hear, there were 8 cards that got leaked. You'll note there are only 7 here on the screen. That's because the Shaman card, Fist of Ra-Din, was actually officially revealed by Blizzard, which lends a lot of credibility to the rest of these leaked cards. So I am going to talk about these. Just a reminder, these are 100% not confirmed. They could be fake, they could be incorrect, or maybe old versions of the cards. So this is not a full review. I'm going to save that for when Blizzard officially confirms these cards. Also to note, these were originally leaked in a different language, I think Spanish perhaps. I went through and tried my best to translate the names of the cards and updated some of the translations that were originally provided for the card text as well. So these names are made up. I think a couple of them are very likely to be right. Others may be, variations or close to correct, but not quite there. That said, let's go ahead and talk about each of these at least a little. Up first here is the Brave Gunner, a new neutral card. It's a 5-mana 5/5 with a battle cry that reads, enemy battle cry cards cost 5 more next turn. So this basically looks like a Lotheb for battle cries. And as we know, battle cries in Hearthstone have really become the predominant keyword. I mean, so many insanely deck-defining cards. Just the most powerful stuff in the game relies on battle cries. And what that means is Brave Gunner looks like it has a way to shut down some really powerful options. Can stop combos, can stop hero cards, since this is using the cards text instead of minions. I mean, that looked like the right translation, so keep that in mind. And a lot of game plans can really be disrupted. You think your opponent's going to Galakrond next turn? Drop the Brave Gunner, slow them down, right? They have some crazy combo or value generator battle cry, slow them down. This could be used in an aggro deck to protect their board from, the swing turn of a Shaman Galakrond, for instance. Could be used in control decks to slow down the pressure that some other deck is generating via summoning lots of minions. Can be used to counter specific quests like Battle Cry Shaman. That means I do think this card has a lot of flexibility. Lotheb was an amazing card in its era, and for a lot of the reasons that Lotheb was good, I think Brave Gunner could be a one-of in decks as well. So I do expect this card to see some play. Moving on here, we have the Tireless Felbat, a 4-mana 3/3 demon that will cost 1 less for each damage dealt to your opponent this turn. So basically, you could play this as a 0-mana 3/3 in a lot of cases. Just sling that Nether Breath to the opponent's face, and you get yourself a free 3/3. We saw in the past some free 3/3s in things like, Heal Zoo with Happy Ghoul, getting that free 3/3 really did go a long way in an aggro deck. And I think Tireless Felbat fits in a lot of different aggro decks because many of them don't have trouble dealing 4 damage to the face, particularly if they get off to an early start. They can just go hard, hit you with a couple minions, get the 0-mana guy. Even if it's not 0 mana, if it's like 2 mana, you're still not unhappy. You're probably not super thrilled at 4 mana, but it's still playable. If you don't have anything else to do, why not? And I think what this means is this becomes a very powerful option for so many fast decks. Demon Synergy, perhaps a bonus sometimes for Warlock or somebody, but mostly I think this guy is just quick, aggressive, and gets played. So next up here we have the Hailstone Summoner, as I'm calling him, the 5-mana 3/4 elemental with a battle cry that will summon 2 1/1 icicles with freeze. So apparently they'll freeze things that they attack. So if those 1/1 icicles got to attack, they could create some big problems. Even like rush minions trading into 1/1 icicles, that actually works out pretty well, because instead of just clearing them for free basically with a value trade, you're instead locking down your opponent's resources for a while. If they do live long enough to attack on their own, also you get to dictate some pretty powerful freezes. So that's a cool idea. The question is, is that going to be worth 5 mana? And maybe the answer is no. I think most decks won't really feel like this gets there. They could do better things with said mana. But nonetheless, a high friction card like this that summons multiple bodies is the sort of thing that we've seen work in the past in Hearthstone. Just stuff that goes wide and reloads is cool. Maybe there's some elemental synergies to play around with this one. And if that freeze becomes annoying enough, I wouldn't be shocked to see a deck here or there toss in the Hailstone Summoner. So I think it's an okay card, just not a super directed or exciting one that fits into tons of decks. So now let's head over to some class cards like the Choppercopter. I really hope that's the name. And when I plugged that into some translators, I was like, That could be it. It's a 3 mana, 2/4 mech, and it reads, whenever a friendly mech dies, add a random mech to your hand. So in Hunter, we've obviously seen Mech Hunter work in the past. It still works fairly well right now, too. It is typically a very fast deck that cares about pumping out lots of damage, as Hunter often wants to do, using things like magnetic cards to accelerate that damage even faster. And what choppercopter does is kind of shifts that focus a little bit and moves it from a high tempo, high pressure world to more of a value generation sort of world, where suddenly you're trading in mechs and you're getting things in hand that's more resource oriented as opposed to tempo and pressure oriented. And I think that's going to be a little bit of a fit problem for the choppercopter. I think Hunter just wants to go, and having like kind of backup plans and secondary resources is not traditionally what Hunter has succeeded at. They like to just go, go, go. And although microbots are the perfect sort of thing to trade in, and there's a lot of those lingering around with all the snip snaps and such, nonetheless, I don't know if this has the focus that Mech Hunter wants. So in a vacuum, like, obviously, yes, this is cool. It's comparable to like Cult Master in a way, trade stuff in, get cards. The difference is, right, Cult Master a little bit more expensive, considerably worse stat line, no mech synergy, but it's drawing you cards from your deck that do things. This is random mechs, which can also be pretty bad, right? There's a lot of just worthless, low-cost mechs in the pool, some that are too expensive for you to play in a Mech Hunter deck. So I think the payoff here is like not great. I think it doesn't really fit what Mech Hunter wants to do. So like, yes, if you look at this at a surface level, you know what? It's kind of cool. If you look at it closer, I think it has some problems. But it does have a hammer and a sword, apparently, is what it's using to float, which is pretty insane. That's really cool. Maybe it's called the Weapon Copter. Who knows? So fun card, cool idea. I hope this is the name. But either way, I don't think it really gets played much. Moving on to the Reckless Captain, a 1 mana 1/3 that reads, after you play a minion, deal 1 damage to all minions. So a whirlwind generator here for Warrior, and another 1 mana 1/3 for Warrior as well. We've seen 1 mana 1/3s are great. Eternity Rover's been one of the best 1-drops ever, I'd argue. I think this one does a lot of cool things for Warrior as well. Sometimes that whirlwind's great to activate your Eternity Rover or your Acolyte of Pain. You're happy to use that. Sometimes it's just a really good board clear as well. Suddenly you get a couple whirlwinds out of the Reckless Captain. That makes it a powerful late game card and a really good early game card as well. You could argue this is like a 1 mana 1/2 if you're going to try to get some value out of that effect. But in a world where lackeys matter, anytime there's Divine Shields, any kind of token deck that's out there, Reckless Captain becomes a really, really cool card. And I think this one's very powerful. It's going to see play in Warrior. It's exactly the kind of card they love. So keep your eye out for this one. Next up here, we got some spells. Waxham Antsy for Rogue. It is a spell that will discover a battlecry minion and then reduce its cost by 2. So you spend 2, you get a 2-cost reduction, and you get to discover seemingly random battlecry minion along the way. The problem for a card like Waxham Antsy is that a random battlecry is not going to be that good. There are a lot of battlecry minions in Hearthstone that just aren't compelling or powerful. And although, Spirit of the Shark exists and you can double battlecries, it's just not going to be good, right? Like, lackey battlecries are amazing, but Waxham Antsy is going to get you just some garbage junk choices. Even if you get one good choice every once in a while, there's so many other bad choices that, is it going to fit in the moment? Is it going to matter? The discount is, something you could store for a future turn, which is kind of cool because rogues do like to have cheap cards in hand sometimes. So there is some actual value in the even split here between the spell cost and the reduction, which is the thing to keep in mind. But ultimately, I think the card quality is just going to be too low, especially with the Discover rules changing where you don't have a bonus to class cards anymore. It's going to be a lot of neutral cards. You'll occasionally get some cool dragons and stuff, yes, but I don't think the high rolls make up for the downsides and the just risks of having to run this card into your deck. I think this is a pretty mediocre one. It's fine if you randomly generate it and so on and so forth, but not something that's going to make the cut in a deck. And then finally here we have Twisted Knowledge for Warlock. 2-mana spell that discovers you 2 Warlock cards. So you take 1 card and you turn it into 2. It's kind of a resource generator in a way. It could build out your hand size or something like Handlock if you needed it to. But the problem for this one's, again, just coming down to Discover perhaps not being good enough, particularly with Warlock cards. There are a lot of bad Warlock cards and a lot of average Warlock cards as well. if you think about Warlock and the decks that are played most in Warlock, they run a lot of neutral cards. Like Handlock has a bunch of big neutral minions as its payoff cards, right? Zoo runs a lot of neutral stuff as well to keep their curve going. And when it comes to Warlock cards, man, there's some stuff out there that's just not good. So on average, you might get like one good card out of this that you're excited to play, but you could have just ran a good card in your deck instead. So I don't think like the resource addition here and the kind of in a pinch choice flexibility that this offers is good enough personally, because it could, like, oh my god, I need removal really desperately, or on a different turn, oh, I really need a threat, and like this helps you find that specific thing. That's cool in a way because it helps you figure out an option that you didn't build into your deck. That's nice that you can choose that, but ultimately you're paying a 2-mana tax for all of that. You're paying, the slot in your deck tax. And for me, that means Twisted Knowledge probably just doesn't get there. Which means that's it for the leaked cards here. I, again, cannot guarantee you that these are real. The stats could be wrong. The costs could be updated. The wording certainly could be off here or there. And the names are almost certainly not right in most cases because I just tried to translate these and make them up. But nonetheless, these should be pretty close to what we expect to see. And I think they're probably real cards, but just, assess and think about them and get excited and hyped about them or dread them at your own peril, because I certainly can't guarantee that. That said, I am curious what you guys think about these and whether you think they'll be good for the game, bad, will they be strong or weak. We will do full reviews on these in the future. I may, abbreviate those reviews a little bit since we talked about them in probably more detail than I expected in this very video, but nonetheless, we'll give you some star ratings and so on and so forth. That said, thanks for watching as always. Good luck out there in Galakrond's Awakening, and until next time, game on.
Dragons take flight above the ice.